Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Zepp, and today I am here with you for a review of the Queen of the Murder Scene album by The Warning. Now, one thing I will say before I get into the review, well, maybe one or two things, it depends how much I rant. For those, you guys know I like to rant by now, surely. But, oh god, what was it I was going to say? I forgot. I'm going to leave this mostly uncut, by the way, because I kind of want it to be a more natural flowing video. But this is a video I recorded already. I've already recorded this video, and looking back on it, I wasn't particularly too happy with the things that I said, and I wanted to let the album sort of marinate on me a little more. So I am re-recording it now. I'm hopefully going to make it shorter, because it was like a 20-25 minute video and I didn't know what to cut out of it, so I just thought, yeah, I'll redo it. But before we do get into it, there's a couple of things one thing I need to acknowledge as well. First of all, I have been made aware of, because again, you guys have been telling me, because again, 99% of you for the most part from the Warning Army are fantastic and have been so welcoming to me and so happy to have me reacting to the music, and I've been more than happy to do it because I absolutely love doing it. But I've heard about a comment or two, especially from one person in particular who I won't name here, who was actually on the Warning's Patreon saying like pretty much violent threats about my reactions because I don't blindly praise things, essentially, because I said during a couple of songs that I thought it sounded on more of the generic side. And in terms of like the things sounding on the more generic side, I still stand by that to a certain extent, but people automatically take generic as being awful. Some of the best things are generic. It's just that some things, especially in rock music, because rock music is such an overdone genre now, can sound generic. And I stand by that statement. Whether or not you think generic is a horrible thing, that's up to you. But yeah, I was just getting, like, I think what was happening is that, especially on the very last song on the Queen of the Murder Scene album, is that a lot of people were sort of building up this little bit of resentment in terms of how I critique things. And I admit it's not to everyone's taste. I'm not sitting here saying I'm completely in the right, you're all being assholes. I'm not saying that. But what I think happened was that I know that I was in a bad mood when I done the last half of that album, and I stated that on my YouTube community post, and I had a good few likes, a good few comments on it saying not to worry about it, so I thought that would be fine. But I was quite ill at the time I recorded the last half of that album reaction, and I even knew, looking back, editing the videos, that, oh god, I was not in a good mood in this stream recording these. And I made people aware of that, but of course I know not everyone sees those things. But on that last song, I think, in terms of the pacing of the album, that last song is quite important, and I was quite dismissive of the song as being rather generic. It wasn't my favourite from the album by any means, and a couple of people didn't take to that and started having a go at me in the comments. And what I think happened was, from that, because there's been a lot of people maybe building up that slight resentment for a while. Again, I'm not saying a lot. Again, as I know, 99% of you are wonderful to me, but I think that little substrata of people who were taking issue with me finally had the ammunition to go after me in that in that last reaction. And yeah, no, I have to say it was a lot. Like, I again made my position clear. Again, if you follow my community posts, if you're actually invested in what I do in this channel, you understood the context of where all of this was coming from. If you're either not seeing everything that I was putting out, which again is fine, but if you're not seeing everything I'm putting out, there's not as much of a place to comment on it on your part. Or if you're misconstruing things, that's more on you than it is on me. And I had already made it aware to people that I was in a bad mood. And like, one thing I will say, like, I do apologize for being in a worse mood during that listen to. A lot of what I say or said in that video in terms of what I think of the songs still stands, but I think it's maybe the way it came across at that time. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, as again, I've been made aware of some, threats of violence that, again, if they're on the Warnings Patreon page, I won't do the names of who told me, but I was told through email, is that I would implore that anything that has to do with sort of violence and it's being on the Warnings page, I would implore that someone again, because I know this type of stuff from the Warning Army goes around on Discords and stuff, whether it be the Warning themselves or admins of this stuff, I'd implore that admins have a look into that stuff. And I'm not sitting here saying because I felt so hard done by it. It's more so on the basis is that if you're starting to harbor a fandom who will happily talk about wanting to hurt or whatever other reactors or new people who come in to your community who don't fully agree with everything that you like, that builds up a very toxic community. And I know you can't always control that, but I'm not hearing like there's loads of these things happening with loads of different reactors. So it would be within the power of admins and people like that to get this sorted. So if there's any admin of these things who's seen that happening, who watches any of my videos, or someone who is an admin who could, reprimand the people in question or the person in question in particular for this kind of stuff. And mainly just for that, like the hate comments on YouTube, they're fine. People are allowed their opinion. People can be assholes about their opinion. It's a free world. It's a threat of violence thing, that one in particular on the Patreon, that I'd have more of an issue with. Like, because if the band and the community didn't want to deal with that because they don't mind that threat of violence, then that is something where I begin to consider, well, is this really a community that I'd really want to be a part of? And I'm sure a lot of you would think the same as well. That's just something I wanted to get out there really, really quick. Again, I know we're close to running on to 7 minutes already, and I haven't gotten into the album review. So I apologize for having that bit run on so long. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to go into the proper part of the album review. And I actually am going to keep it relatively short because I feel like I ranted a lot in the video that I'm not going to put out about the songs. One thing I will say about the album, and I'm not going to go, oh, here's the positive, here's the negatives. I'm just going to talk. I'm going to let everything flow in terms of what I have to say. The album as a concept, if I was to judge it purely as a concept album, after the first half, it lost me. And I haven't done a lot of reading, but I've done some reading since, and nothing to me has fully made sense in terms of the concept. Like, I think the concept gets too over complex. I don't like where it goes. I don't like how the album then has to, it feels like at times it has to rely a little bit too much. And again, I'm only talking from a concept here. As a pure listen perspective, I'll give that after. But as a pure concept, I don't like how the pacing of the album sometimes gives way to the theme of what's needing to be said. And I think the point I made in the last video I made that's not going out, that I will make here, is that Crimson Queen, I think, for example, in terms of tone, really to me sounds like a song that sets up a final act, like going into the final third. It sounds like a song that you put on the back end of an album. It's one of my favorite songs, by the way, from the album, and one of my favorite songs of theirs, without question. But it being like the second song feels very out of place for me. And again, I don't know loads about the concept of the album. Maybe it fits the concept perfectly, and if it does, more power to it. But that's where I'm talking about how sometimes the tone and pacing of the album had to give way to the concept, and I just wasn't a massive fan. I wasn't a massive fan of that. Now, I haven't listened to many concept albums, but one I really, really like, and it's by a band I'm not a big fan of overall, is the Cleopatra album by the Lumineers. I really like the concept of that. I really think it's better for concept albums, I think, to be a little looser, and I don't even really know how to comment on it in terms of the concept, especially towards the latter end of this Queen of the Murder Scene album, because from what I understand of it, because I was being given a description of each song that was being made up by one of the fans who'd done like an in-depth description thing, which thank you very much for sending that on to me, whoever did. I actually can't remember who sent that to me. And I was reading them after because all my reactions came from Twitch streams. And after I'd end the video, I'd read that thing out on the Twitch stream to try and understand the song better after the fact. And towards the end, I felt like it made absolutely no sense to me. Like, completely no sense. But to the point where I thought, no, this can't be what the band wrote because it makes so little sense. I think the person who wrote it has misconstrued certain things. But I don't know, if the ending almost seems metaphorical in a way, and there was something about that it started to, the whole story started to feel like a metaphor. A lot of people have said the dust to dust. You could actually look at that as, because you start again and it goes in a loop. But then apparently in the concept that she had killed herself. So how does it go in a loop? Like, that's where it seems like to act on more metaphorical levels, and I don't really like it all the time when concept albums act on metaphorical levels, because the music itself is a metaphor for the or the sound of the music itself is a metaphor for the idea. So if you're doing a metaphor for a metaphor, to me, I don't particularly like that. But again, that's just a personal thing. And to be honest, again, that may not have made loads of sense to the people watching this, but it was just that's how I felt. I started to feel a little bit confused. I started to feel like it was a little bit convoluted, and I'm not really a guy who gets confused easily by things. I know that sounds like me really tooting my own horn. Maybe I'm legit just not getting something that's dead simple and I'm being an absolute idiot, but for the most part, I'm not like easily confused by things that are complicated. I usually try to understand them quite quickly, you know, but there was just something about it concept wise that completely lost me coming towards the end of it, and especially after the first half. But what I will say is that, because I was originally going to give this album a rating of around like 7.8, 7.7, one thing I will say is that I decided to re-listen to the album casually. I didn't look at the names of the songs. I went and I played a game and I had the album blaring in the background. And when I was doing that, I really, really enjoyed it. From a song-to-song basis of just listenability, take away the concept, take away the lyrics, just listening to it casually in the background while trying to have a good time, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Enjoyed it way more than I did on the initial reaction to it. Now, do I think it's better than the Mayday EP? No. However, I do completely understand why people would maybe think it's better than the Mayday EP, because it's deeper. There's deeper stuff going on. It's tonally different. It, like, the Mayday EP, while being great and something I still prefer, I could understand why more hardcore fans would think of the Mayday EP as more of their surface level stuff. And then when you really kind of delve in to see what they're about and really what's going on inside their heads and them to their core, that would be more of the queen of the murder scene. And that really shines through on the album. And there's a good few songs on the album that I would say are better than the songs, or a lot of the songs on the Mayday EP. But I'm just kind of talking from the album on an overall perspective. And of course, it's going to be harder to get an album of 11, 12 songs or whatever to be better than an EP that's only 6, because you can hone it in a little more in terms of listenability. Again, I'm pulling away from the concept here because I want to judge this on its album more in its positives than its negatives. Again, if I was to judge this purely in its concept, I wouldn't be a massive fan, but I want to judge it on just the music and how I enjoyed the music and the style of it. And I just have to say, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the album. Again, I know why that may not have come through in the reactions, but in the reactions, I'm trying to analyze it. The second time I listened to it on my own time was really just a thing of casual enjoyment. And Dust to Dust is one of my all-time favorite Warning songs now. Like, it'd be in my top 3. And Dull Knives as well is up there, probably my top 5. Like, to be honest, actually, I think Evolve and Z are the only two that are above. Then, in terms like from the Mayday EP, a lot of the next ones would probably be from the Queen of the Murder Scene album. And the fact that, look, I've always said this, and people have been bringing up to me as well, I said loads, like when I was reacting to this band early on, that I wasn't sure about delving into their earlier discography because of their age, and because of the fact I was not going to judge it on their age, because I didn't care about their age, because I'm not going to do something that's great for a 13-year-old. I only want to judge it off whether it's great or whether it isn't. I don't care that they're their age. I know a lot of people like to see is that, look at the singer who went on Britain's Got Talent or X Factor. They were only 12 and they knocked it out of the ballpark. It's like, hooray, they're 12. I don't care. You know, that's just how I have always been in terms of music. I don't really care about the age. And a lot of people were saying to me, and again, I think they were right in the overall. I was like, no, it's actually good. It's good music. I know the age thing might be an off-putting thing for you because of that, but it's actually good music. So I listened to it. Really, I've really enjoyed the album. But I swear, nearly every video, when people have, at least one person has commented when addressing my critiques, has been, yeah, but the fact that one of them was only 11 years old at the time of writing this, it's like, I already said, I made it perfectly clear going into this, that I'm not taking their age into account, because I also think taking their age into account is insulting. It's belittling, especially for how good the album is. I mean, if I wrote something 4 years ago, right? No, actually, I'm 22 now. I'm getting old. 6 years ago, so I would have been 16, right? Done the math right? Yeah, 16, and then 17, 18, 19, 3-4 years later, it did really well, and someone came up to me, he's like, that was really good for a 16-year-old. I mean, they're like, is it not just good? No? Good for a 16-year-old? Like, great, so by the standards of an 18-year-old, it's meh. Like, what's your point? It's a really good album, the Queen of the Murder Scene album, and I'm judging it off how good the album is, not how good it is because of their age. And equally, when something that I don't like is in the album, like something that I'm just not a fan of, I'm also going to say that I don't like it and not negate that because of their age. It's that if you're going to do it one way, you have to do it the other way, because otherwise you're just being biased. And maybe it's because, maybe it comes from a place of wanting to just encourage kids to do things, so you're naturally more encouraging than discouraging. You're more, say, positives than negatives, and maybe from a parenting aspect or an emotional support aspect, yes, that's the way to go. But as someone, again, for people who know me by now, I'm kind of just a critical critiquer. That's how I view things, and I understand why some people may not like that, but that's how I view these things. That's how I view them, simple as. And yeah, again, that's just something that I wanted to get out there, because I don't know how much more of the warning stuff I'm going to do in terms of delving into their old stuff, so I feel like this is kind of just a good point to lay all my cards on the table. And if I react to any more of their songs going forward and people are still giving me that stuff, then I just know they're not really paying attention to what I do in terms of reacting to them. And there's no point reacting to the warning, and there's no point even responding to it, because I've laid my cards on the table early on, which I did, but they're being laid out even more clearly now. So it's been made clear. But anyway, one last thing I want to say about the album, and people may take it as a negative, but I don't think it's a negative. I think it's again a thing because of their age, and it's going to annoy some people, but I want to say it anyway. In the Queen of the Murder Scene album, again, while I really like it, they wear their influences way more on their sleeve than they do in the Mayday EP. The Mayday EP sounds way more original in terms of sound than what this does. I think I was tempted not even going to say this, because I know some people would go ballistic about it because I mention them so much. And again, it's only because I know them so well. I know there's plenty of other influences of The Warning, but this is arguably their biggest influence anyway, and their biggest influence is my favourite band. So I know it to hear. The influence from Muse sound in the Queen of the Murder Scene album is way more apparent than it is in the Mayday EP. It is like worn on their sleeve, and that's fine. I just want to put that out there, but I know people will take issue with that. If anything, if people weren't taking as much issue with it, it's something I probably wouldn't even bring up, because I genuinely don't think it's that much of a thing. But the fact that people get so worked up about it, I feel like, well, it must be important then, so I'll talk about it. Again, barely a better band in the world to have your sound influenced from, and they do it really well. Again, there's their own stuff in there, there's other influences in there. I'm not saying it's just them, but just, I don't know, be acceptful of that. That's kind of a point I want to get through. It's like, yeah, a band that wrote an album when they're 14, 15 years old is going to wear more of their influences because they haven't developed their own sound yet. Again, even look at Muse's first album. It's just a Radiohead knockoff. I don't even like their first album because it's not even a good Radiohead knockoff, because it's of a Radiohead era that's not even Radiohead's best era. So, people on their first album, when they're young and they first start writing, they wear so much of their influences on their sleeve, and that's absolutely fine. Just don't deny it, because then you're just wrong. And we hate to be wrong, don't we? But anyway, yeah, I'm probably not even going to put any cuts in this. I'll probably leave this quite raw and quite ranty, because, I think people who have been a fan of my warning reactions and followed me on this journey, and again, you guys have been so big in helping me get YouTube partner and do everything that I'm doing now with this channel. Again, the new camera that you're watching this on, the other channels that are live, my schedule on Twitch, genuinely none of that would have been possible without you guys. And you know, I am forever thankful. And that is why I'm leaving this uncut, is because he's sitting, you've watched me in the Twitch as well. You hear my opinions. You're not just here for the quick bam, 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 only give me the important stuff. You listen. And I am really, really grateful for that. And thank you for that. And look, I'm always going to react to The Warning going forward. Whenever they release a new song, believe me, I'll be one of the first on it. I may not delve any deeper back. Maybe in my own time. I really don't know yet. We might do it on a Twitch stream. But the amount of The Warning content that goes up on my channel will probably slow just a little bit now for a while. And it has been a really, really cool journey that could genuinely be the catalyst into changing my life, and for me being able to continue and do this thing that I love doing. And, you know, because of your support, I was able to afford the camera. It also means that I'm able to justify saving up to do other things, other types of content, you know. You've helped me expand, and that's, you know, hats off to you guys, because it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. And this is around where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to conclude now with the rating of the Queen of the Murder Scene album. And I was originally going to give this album like around a 7.7, 7.8. Again, basing off the fact I'm judging things stricter now. I don't know if I've mentioned that already, but my rating system now is stricter than it was, because I feel like I was giving a lot of 8s and not enough 7s. And I want that kind of gap between a 7 and a 9 to be a bit, you know, bigger. But after having listened to the album casually, really enjoying it, and having songs growing on me, I think I gave the Mayday EP an 8.5, and I think I'm going to give this album an 8.1. I think if, again, I don't do it, but if you want to take into account their age when writing this is an absolute phenomenal album. And if you take away that and you're just to take the album as how it is, no age, nothing, it's an album you pick up in a shop and you stick on, you know nothing about the band, it is a damn good album, all things considered. Not perfect, has its moments where it just, like, even on the casual listen for me, I was like, things just sound like they're blending together, because again, I was listening to it really casually. The middle of the album for me is where it begins to blend, but for the most part, I really enjoy it. I just still think, as from a casual listen, it's a damn good album, and that's ultimately where it counts, right? That's realistically where it counts, you know, when the casual listener picks it up and what they think, and then when they become a fan, they delve into things deeper. You know, you want to appeal to casual listeners, and I think it's a great album. They're great artists, great people. They're going on tour now, I think, in a future. They may have literally just started as of recording this, or about to start, and I wish them all the best. I hope it goes so well for them. And I hope to see them in Europe. If they come to Europe, I hope to see them in Ireland. And I guarantee if they come to Ireland, this 6'5" tall, ugly looking motherfucker is going to be in the first row, dancing and bopping along to every song. And that is because you guys put me onto them and forced me, but I'm glad you forced me to listen to their music. So thanks again for that. You've added another incredible band to my catalogue that I'm always going to have on my radar. And I look forward to seeing what they do in the future. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll consider subscribing to see more of The Warning content in the future, and other content that goes on this channel and my other channels on YouTube now. Please leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment letting me know what you think, and what you think of my reaction, and what you think of the album. So take care. Have a good one, folks. I've been Zepp, and I hope to see you soon. Peace.